And I remember I go with saying I'm going to do 18 months of field work, regardless of the amount of funding. Because I remember Godelier said, you need 18 months. 6 months to make mistakes. 6 months you realize you made mistakes, and if you're lucky enough, you're going to do 6 months of real work. And that's what I repeat today. I arrive in Port Moresby with no idea when I'm going to sleep on the evening. I thank my parents for their unconventional education and learning how to be streetwise and learning how to navigate things. And I end up in a guest house, all safe, who happens to be a Chinese national who is very helpful with me. And I go and I started to do my fieldwork. So in fact, I don't start right away. I go to the university. I spend 2 months. Well, I spent three months trying to get my visa. That means I go to Iwak. I encountered that French national who was a contact of Philippe Pelletier, Olivier Méric de Belfond, who hosts me, who helped me, thanks to one of is married to somebody from the area, the brother of which takes me through a trip to go to Maprik area where I'm going to do my fieldwork. We'll remember forever because I was, sitting on the top of that big truck alongside with a family that were smoking a cigarette on the Sepik Highway, which was a dirt road. Now it's covered, the dirt road, smoking a cigarette and realizing that I'm sitting on big drums full of fuel. Long trip, arriving there, I spent a night with the New Apostolic Church because that's the local, and the apostle introduced me to Vernon Jouali, which I know still today, who takes me to his village in Yamiku. We're sometime in October 2001. Then, and so we start to climb on the foothills because the Abelam village are on the southern part of the Prince Alexander Range, which is a chain of mountains that separate the Sepik Plain from the Bismarck Sea. And so you climb a bit like that. It's very steep. It's not very high, but it's very steep. So I'm very glad also I grew up in the mountains, so I know how to walk in the mountain, right? And it's very slippery. And it's raining. And we start to climb, and during the journey, we stop at a place where there is a young man who is taking yams out of his storage house. Vernon introduced me to him, and it turns out it's an English teacher. Teaches English in primary school, and he lives in the village. And that's Robin Galwara Kitnyora, who's going to become my host brother and my best friend over there. So I travel all the way up to the village. I explain what I want to do. So nowadays you need ethics, you need authorization, you need consent form. I obtain the equivalent, but only after having spoken for the first time in my life on the ceremonial ground in front of the entire village. And all the elders, and I sit at the back and the elders sit at the front. There's a very sort of hierarchical, and they are chewing betel nut, and I'm just there. I realize, I'm actually there. I'm just and at the same time, hugely conscious of the ethical dimension, of the position, of the importance of that moment, of what, that all my research depends on them. I was ready to go to do several villages. I remember that gentleman turned to be Alois Bakwakula later on, was like white hair, a fierce mustache, a very strong face. And of course, Tepanyengi, who is the chief of the village, who was also, and they don't talk to me directly. They talk a bit to me, but not really to me. And finally, they say, okay, you can stay, but you're going to stay with Robin. He's going to be responsible for you. I leave. I go back to Wewak, I go back to Port Moresby, I do to the National Research Institute, which was then a nightmare. I do all the paper to get my visa, and then I need to get out of the country. And I end up being in, and the only place I can go, I'm not going to go back to Europe, so I'm going to Canberra. And I'm wait there for 2 months to get my visa. So I explained, of course, the people in the village know that I want to work on yams, right? There is no more initiation, nothing like that. But so I realized that I need to know a bit more about, research on the natural environment and, and this type of thing. So I end up being, once I'm waiting to get my visa, I go to Canberra and I stay there for 2 months. I do all the paper with the embassy, I find an accommodation. I'm associated with the Department of Geography, with Mike Burke and Bryant Allen, very important for me as well, who are geographer. We've done work on yams and cultivation. I also meet another PhD student who is in Fieldwork is coming out. PhD candidate who is doing his PhD in Oxford, Joshua Bell, who became like my sort of brother in the field. We're still friends. He's the chair for anthropology at the Smithsonian now. He had like some issue with the current administration. And then, so I hang out there, and then I meet that researcher there, Florence Brunois, who just came to give her book. And we become good friends. So we spend an evening and part of a night in Civic, in the O'Malley, I think, one of the only pub there. And we talk about not only anthropology, but our lives. And she gives me a lot of good advice. And we have similar sort of vibe in terms of where we're coming from as kids. So we know we understand each other, right? We're not really the ENS or good family of anthropology, right? We're a bit scoundrel or whatever. So Florence was very important. She tell me like, do this, do that, don't remember. You're going to be excellent. You're going to be great, right? I also meet Diane Losh at the moment, who is an anthropologist, Australian anthropologist, who's done research on the Abelam, but on gender, who is very, encouraging. So I get, basically, as I explained recently, my training is not my own idea. It's made of encounters. It's made of support and contribution to many people. And Florence is quite important at that time, right? I haven't met Godelier, I haven't met Descola. I mean, I've seen them from distant figure. But those are the people who are very sort of close to me. Philippe Pelletier, of course, Christian Kaufmann, who was also the curator of the museum in Basel. That is going to be very important later on. And Steve Hooper. Even Marion Stratton is a distant figure, very scary, like very complicated, but, But those type of encounters you make there before you go to the field are very, very important. And so I wait for my visa. And then by the end of November, I got my visa. So I meet Chris Ballard at a conference at the same time, gave me a couple of ideas, very interesting. And then I take the plane back to Moresby to Wewak, the long trip, 10 hours to do 3 kilometers. Oh, no, Robin comes. I've got a picture of that. Robin comes, and I've got that patrol box that was given to me by, I can't remember whom. Somebody gave me a patrol box, like very colonial, right? I've got a patrol box in which I put all my stuff. I made myself a sort of manual of botanical research and etc. I put all of that. Robin comes with some friends. We find a car, I believe, and then we go and I set and I stay in Yamikum from, I would say, the 10th of December 2001 up until I think I leave at the beginning of July, the first trip, 2002. At first, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm just like, okay, it's literally you wake up in the morning and you say, okay, I'm an ethnographer now. I am going to ethnography. Nowadays, we give them, a lot of, advice and stuff. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So I've got my field notes and these little things are very hungry. So I need to feed my field notes. And so, but I'm there. So, okay. So I think like, okay, environment, right? Geography. I'm going to make a map. And so I'm go around with not like a very elaborated thing, like, this compass, glass compass, and I take like, triangulation as I've learned, right? And I make those quite nice map. Retrospectively, I still talk about that are just like little drawings, a little bit Lord of the Ringsy, to be honest, a bit Tolkienish, right? But they are very interesting because there's a lot of small information here, a swamp here, that stuff. It's just a map of the footpath. And then at the same time, I'm saying I'm an anthropologist. What do anthropologists do? They collect genealogies. So I start around and collect genealogies. What a mistake. First of all, when you are in the field as an ethnographer, it's the first, I've never been that white my entire life. I was the white man. I've never been that white. I were more sort of views on the contrary, being the one that the, police going to check randomly, in the street, which has happened, or, at the border, whatever. I've never been that white in my entire life. So that was a bit of a shock. And when a white man goes around and make maps and collect genealogies, that means that he's interested in one thing, it's land. And people are very interested in land. I had to stop because I realized that I was like, actually completely not seen as what I was supposed to do. They thought I was there to help people make land claims or buy land. There were a lot of, noise. So I stopped very quickly doing that. So that was the first mistake I made. Then I stopped doing anything apart from going around and taking notes of what I was seeing. I wasn't even taking a lot of pictures, right? So I helped in every single task we were doing. I remember the first thing that I don't know how to do was those tiles made of sago palms leaflet, les folioles. So how to make to cover. I helped build a lot of houses. I went around and, I kept doing my maps though, because I was very interested in the name of the place. And I realized that there's an entire sort of very rich toponymy, which is undocumented. So the first thing that I realized when I was in the field is like those images of Indiana Jones or Jack London or Fenimore Cooper or Jules Verne of savage place is absolutely not. It's very anthropized. Everything is anthropized. I had more the feeling to be in the Shire than I was in Amazonia, right? So yeah, the Lord of the Rings, the books I'm talking about occupy a very important place in my sort of, so I was really like amazed by the beautiful gardens, the well-maintained footpath and etc. and the patches of forest, right? Where I grew up, there were a couple of forests, but they were like quite small. And I've always been fascinated by forests, I think. And for me, that was like really magical. So I started to go around learning the Tok Pisin, trying to speak the Ambulese, which was a complicated language. So every day I would go around with Robin, work or go visit some people. And on the evening, I would retire in my room. We were sharing a room with a table. I still have a nice picture of that, where with my petrol lamp, and I was revisiting my field notes and trying to think about what that would, trigger what type of question I would ask. I started to record technical processes, sequence by sequence. So little by little, I started to get in that routine of working during the day and working quite late on revisiting my notes and synthesizing them and etc. And the friendship with Robin is still today really amazing. So he was younger. He was perhaps in his, I was then 34, and Robin must have been 10 years younger than me, I think. And that was quite an interesting transformation of the self, first of all. I think you don't, I don't know, that may be like completely banal, I'm going to say, but I think you don't become really an anthropologist by reading anthropology. You become anthropology by being in the field. That's really sort of forges you. Okay, I don't want to go into the sort of, you need to go to tough place and be isolated but there is something about being in another community, and David Berliner talks about becoming other, right? Is that him? Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's him. No, it's not Berliner. It's, I forgot. But, there's this idea of becoming other, which I think is quite important. And there's a lot of critique today about, these othering that anthropology does. But I think that there is a distanciation from you were, and what you like, what you eat, what you do for your day, and how you align yourself to the people, which is quite transformative. It's also, and I think it's very important, it's an effective alignment. Robin became my brother, right? Regardless of the theory or the data that I brought back, there was something very strong there, which was at the same time a bit tragic, because I knew that he would have to stop and it would be very difficult for me to come back. So there was, in that first period of, becoming friends, a detachment from who I was before. The becoming of, I don't know if it's an anthropologist, but becoming something a bit there, with the idea that in the future I would have to leave and I wouldn't be able to come back. So that was already a bit sad. It's like, the summer love story. You see what I mean? Where, it has a shared time, and that after that you're just going to see each other from time to time. But there was like really something very strong there. So that's the first part of my field.